Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. When was the last time you looked at yourself? Not checked, not glanced, not inspected yourself for all the things that are wrong as you're walking out the door. I mean, really looked. With attention, with curiosity, the way you'd look at a photo of someone you love. Take a moment to remember, because for many of us, the answer is somewhere between seldom and never. We glance, we check, we assess. Okay, let's be real. We judge, but we don't see. Welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast, where we build mental fitness, self-love, and self-worth from the inside out. These are honest, unedited conversations from the heart. Today, I want to introduce you to someone who turned seeing themselves into a life's work. Hundreds of photographs, one face, their own. And by the end of this episode, I hope you will understand why that might be one of the bravest acts of self-love I have ever witnessed. But first, something new is beginning today. I'm starting a small series inside Season 2. Over the next weeks, I want to introduce you to artists whose work found me at different points of my journey. Novelists, poets, musicians, photographers. Every one of them helped me see self-love through a different lens. They gave me a fresh perspective on self-worth when my own view was clouded. I'll share with you how I came to find each of them, what their work means to me, and the window each one opened inside me. And one invitation before we begin. For this series, hear the word art and creativity as the same word. I know that for some of us, art feels a bit out of reach. It can carry a tinge of elitism. And some of us have been made to feel like we don't get it. So we think art must not be for us. If that's you, every time I say art, hear creativity instead. It's the same door. And here, those two words can be used interchangeably. And now you might be asking, okay, but why? Why these artists? Why does this kind of thing belong on a podcast about mental fitness and personal growth? Well, creativity is woven into our everyday life already. The music you listen to on your headphones when you're commuting, the words that find you at a moment you need them most, a film that moves you, an image that stops you mid-scroll and makes you feel something you can't name. Art, creativity carries an essence. It holds layers of stories. These artists, they're just like you and me. They share their work with us, their struggles. They share their dark and their light. And sometimes it reaches a place in us that advice can never reach. That is the series, a selection of incredible artists who I found at various stages on my journey, and each has left a mark on my heart, and I am the better for it every time. And my intention is that through them, a window inside you will open and you will discover something in yourself. And I'm sharing my perspective on their work as someone who was moved, touched, and changed by what they put out into the world. I am not sharing as an art critic with all the complicated words and terminologies associated with that. This is human level, heart level sharing. Our first artist is Zanele Muholi. And before I tell you who Zanele is, I want to tell you how they found me. Because I knew of their work for a while, I was aware of them in a way we are aware of so many artists. A name, some images, a general sense of their presence in the culture. But awareness is not the same as an encounter. The encounter came in December 2024 in London. I was traveling with my niece. She was 20 at the time, a generation younger than me, clearly. And that trip was already a gift before we walked through a single gallery door. The time with her, the bonding, two women with a whole generation between us, together, with no agenda except each other. My niece and I were both born in South Africa. And one of those days, in London, thousands of miles from the place where we come from, we walked into the Tate Modern and were met by another South African in all their magnificence, Zanele Muholi. Two South Africans standing in a foreign city, brought together by a third. It felt like home had crossed the world to find us. Now here is something I only learned afterwards, and it gave me goosebumps. That exhibition first opened at the Tate Modern in 2020. And the COVID lockdown cut it short. It was silenced before it could be seen. 4 years later, it came back. Bigger. Over 300 photographs. An artist whose entire mission is to insist on being seen, and their show refused to disappear. Beautiful people, I do not say this lightly. It was a profound moment for my niece and I. The photographs were curated with such care, hung so magnificently, and woven through the exhibition were video interviews where Zanele speaks about their body, about all bodies, about what it means to be seen. And what moved me most was that my niece and I each felt it individually in our own private and deeply personal way. And we felt it collectively, together. I sensed what she was feeling. She sensed what I was feeling. Neither of us had to say a word. And we never did have the big debrief afterwards, the post-exhibit debrief. No dissection over coffee, no analysis on the tube home. And I've thought about that so much since, because sometimes words are a gift. And sometimes the need to explain everything is how we escape a feeling instead of how we honor it. Letting something be what it is in the moment without pulling it apart is a kind of trust. Trust in the feeling, trust in each other. She and I both knew we had felt something deeply. We could see it in each other. And we let it be. Two South African women, a generation apart, side by side in London, looking through the same lens. That is what art can do. It did the speaking for us. The photos spoke for us. So who is Zanele Muholi? Zanele is South African, born in Umlazi outside Durban. Zanele is non-binary and uses they and them. So that is how I will speak of them today and always. And straight away, here's something I love. Zanele does not call themselves an artist. They call themselves a visual activist. Because for Zanele, picking up a camera was never about aesthetics. It was about existence. Since 2006, Zanele has photographed Black LGBTQIA+ South Africans, portrait after portrait, in an ongoing project called Faces and Phases. There's around more than 300 faces now, people who had been made invisible, or worse, people who had been made targets. And Zanele's answer was to look at them properly, with dignity, to say with a camera, you exist, you are worth documenting, you belong in the archive. Zanele returns to photograph the same people years apart, so you see them growing through the phases of their own lives. It's a living archive of people the world tried its best not to see. And then Zanele turned the camera around. The self-portrait series is called Sonyama Ngonyama. In isiZulu, it means, Hail the Dark Lioness. It's an ongoing series that began in 2012. Zanele set themselves a goal, 365 self-portraits, one for every day of a year. More than a decade in, they are still working toward it. Because facing yourself is not something you do on a schedule. And in these photographs, Zanele transforms everyday objects, clothes pegs, scouring pads, rubber gloves, the materials of domestic work. We made them into crowns and jewelry and armor. Some of these portraits are titled Beste, and that was Zanele's mother's name. Beste was a domestic worker who cleaned homes for white families, and the work kept her living apart from her own children. So when Zanele wears a crown of clothes pegs, that is not a costume. That is a child honoring their mother, turning the tool of their mother's labor, the tools of her trauma, the tools of her suffering, into royalty. And I need to tell you what these photographs look like in a room. They're black and white. And Zanele deepens the contrast, leaning all the way into the darkness of their skin, setting it against these bright white objects. The effect is so striking, it stops your breath. And portrait after portrait, Zanele's gaze meets yours. Direct, unapologetic, present. And Zanele has named what they hope these self-portraits do. In an interview, they said about this series, I would like for people observing these images to love themselves. I will put links to Zanele's work in the show notes, and I really do invite you to look at these portraits, sit with them, even one, for a minute. Words can only carry you so far here. The photographs do the rest. Now here is where this becomes our conversation. Because what is a self-portrait made again and again over years? It's a practice. Zanele did not photograph themselves once and declared the matter settled. They returned to their own face again and again on different days, in different countries, in grief, in strength, in exhaustion. And to me, That is one of the most honest pictures of self-love I have ever seen. Not a destination you reach once, a practice you return to. And that's what we do here on this podcast. And here is the part that undid me. During the very exhibition my niece and I walked through, Zanele gave an interview about why these images need to be seen. They spoke about helping us to learn how to love ourselves again, without waiting for validation from anyone else. And they said something I have not been able to stop thinking about. For once, take a look at yourself and give thanks for living. Let that settle into your bones. For once, take a look at yourself and give thanks for living. And this is the space we keep exploring this season, the space between knowing the work and living the work. Zanele shows us something about that space. The world told them in 1,000 ways that their body was not worth looking at. Zanele knew that was a lie. But knowing it was a lie was not enough. The living happened one photograph at a time. Each portrait a repetition of the same declaration. I am here. I am worth seeing. I will look at myself, even when the world will not. And there is one more chapter that moves me. In 2021, Zanele founded an art institute in South Africa, self-funded, offering studio space and residencies to young creatives from underserved backgrounds. And I find that so telling, because this is what self-love does when it matures. It stops being only about you, and it starts making room for other people to be seen too. Self-worth that overflows into community. So I ask myself, and I ask you, what is our version of the practice? Because most of us will never make a self-portrait series. But every one of us decides daily whether we are willing to see ourselves, whether we meet our own eyes or avoid them, whether we only ever inspect ourselves for what is wrong, or whether we can look at ourselves with the same dignity Zanele gives every single face in front of their lens. Not searching for flaws, witnessing. So here's something small to carry into your week. Take one moment, once this week, where you look at yourself with intention. It might be 30 seconds at the mirror, meeting your own eyes and staying, resisting the reflexive urge to start criticizing, and simply staying, breathing. It might be finding a photograph of yourself and looking at that person with the tenderness you would give a friend, not judging, not assessing, witnessing. And notice what arises. Because whatever rises is information. That is the work. That is mental fitness in practice. And that is where self-love stops being an idea and becomes something you live. So beautiful people, when was the last time you looked at yourself and witnessed? Maybe this week the answer changes. Look and give thanks that you are here to do the looking. Next week, this series continues with a woman whose book changed how I understand love as a practice. Until then, the links to Zanele's work are waiting for you in the show notes. Go and stand in front of those portraits, even on a screen. Let them show you what looking can be. And if this episode moved something in you, send it to the people in your life who you love and care about. We all deserve to be seen. What comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, like every day, with a willingness to stand beside you as you witness yourself, this comes straight from my heart to yours.